My name is Rebecca Hiller and I'm a historic seamstress. I try as hard as I can to do reproductions of historical clothing as close as possible using historical techniques and fabrics that are modern fabrics, but trying to go back to as similar as I can to what they would have used back then. I started sewing when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I have lots of aunts and grandmas and people who in my family who are really great seamstresses, and so they started to teach me when I was little how to sew. And I've always had a love for history, so when history met sewing, it ended up just being perfect, being what I love to do. This is the only piece of men's clothing that I brought today. This is a men's 18th century waistcoat, and it's lined with cotton. And so I actually bought both of these, made both of these out of recycled Goodwill clothing. And then I brought another garment that's kind of a bit in progress. It's not completely finished. This is a women's dress, and it's almost done. It's almost wearable. It is missing. I need to still sew a piece that goes in the middle. It's called a stomacher, and it actually laces up over the stomacher in the front of the gown. Alright, so to start with, I'm going to put on the stays. And this is for a Regency era outfit, which is from the about 1790 to 1820, the Jane Austen time period, and it had higher waistlines than my usual time period with the 18th century. But it still looked very fun to costume, and it was a time period where America was a lot more settled and had a bit more money, so you get to use more extravagant fabrics and designs. They could have lots of decoration, lots of embroidery on them, but mine are pretty plain. Not really any embroidery and not any thing too bright and pretty about them. They're very utilitarian. Now I'm going to put on the dress, and this is dated to about 1810, and it's a very interesting dress. You can see how it evolved from previous kinds because it actually closes in the front. This would pin to the layer below it, which is how they fasten lots of garments in many time periods up to about the 1820s and 30s was when they stopped using those in as much regularity.
The exhibit that I am about to submit my clothing into is at a historic house and museum called Mansker Station, and it's over in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. And they asked me to contribute some of my clothing that I had and that I was going to make to one of their exhibits at their opening about women's clothes, 1770s to 1790s. So anywhere in that time period is eligible for me to make and to submit for this exhibit.
This is a jacket. It was a popular style in the 18th century, and this particular one is called a stomacher front, which means it has this piece of fabric underneath, and it would lace up or maybe pin closed. You just kind of hide the ends of the pins so they wouldn't poke you, but then again you have the stays on so they wouldn't poke through the stays because they're so thick. It's made out of linen, and this is a common lower class material, and it has this woven stripe in it, and that's another way to just make it look a little bit prettier. And it is sewn using hand stitches, and they actually had a very different methods of using sewing to put a garment together than we do today. They would lots of times fold the pieces and then sew them from the outside instead of from the inside like we do.
And so as you can, if you wanted to look in close, you could see lots of little stitches going down and lots of the eyelets coming down the sides here too. And those would have all been hand sewn, and they were on this side. I hand sewed every single stitch. It's always just an effort to try to get more and more like they would have done, just to find out how they would have sewn, and you can learn lots of interesting things about their lives from the garments they wore and how they put them together.